Hello everyone, this is Faith. I've been thinking about this but what sounds more like Jesus to everyone in the community? Abandoning others just because you disagree with them and think they're misguided? Or reaching out to them in a kind of gentle fashion and talking to them about their problems? Because I can tell you, the leaders of the community failed to do the latter, but they chose to do the former. From what I've noticed, the leaders of this community are willing to hurt others. They brag about spiritual maturity, yet they don't have any. The Mandela Effect community is already isolated, yet our leaders are willing to isolate people more and then attribute those actions to Jesus. Harbinger of the Harvest has tried to make out so far that it is Chanel's fault that she got abandoned. Meanwhile, she didn't do anything bad. Jane lied about her on a live stream and everyone protects that like there's no tomorrow. They sit and they claim that what they're doing is Jesus' will. Meanwhile, is Jesus someone who tends to abandon people just because he disagrees with them or their actions? Last I checked, Jesus tended to protect the sinners from the religious leaders. He didn't abandon the sinners just because the religious leaders told him to. Instead, he dined with them, making them mad. So, if you're gonna sit there and say Chanel and Brand are misguided, that's one thing. But does it actually sound like Jesus to sit there and say, we have to shun them now? Does that sound like something Christ would do? Does it sound like him to you at all? If the answer is no, then you have your answer to who is actually behind the shunning, and it ain't Christ. Now that we have established that it's not Jesus who is behind the shunning of Chanel and Brandt, what actually drives all of you to shun them? Tell me that. I know that it's Satan who wants you all to shun them, but what's the true driving point? Why do you feel like you need to shun people when that is not what Jesus would ever do? Why do you feel the need to attribute your desire to shun them to Jesus when that is not something Jesus would ever do to someone? This community is already fairly isolated, very much so. And the fact that the leaders are willing to continue to isolate others by lying about them, slandering them, bearing false witness against them, just because they disagree on some points. Tell me, how does that even remotely sound like Christ to all of you? How do you justify this in your mind as Christ's will, when it doesn't even sound like something he'd do? I'm genuinely curious to know what this answer actually is, guys. I want to know. What is the answer here? Why do you think that doing all of this is somehow Christ's will when it's something he wouldn't do at all to anybody? Jesus constantly got onto the religious leaders, not onto the sinners. He would gently lead people away from their sin, but that is not the same as sitting there and saying, well, they don't agree with us, so we're gonna shun them, and then claim it's Jesus as well. Please post in the comments below why you think that all of your unacceptable behavior is something Jesus wants. I'd like to hear how something that Jesus would never do was somehow his will, because all of you seek to justify things that he would never even do to anybody. It doesn't make sense. And I'm trying to get things to make sense. I have requested for things to make sense. The more I seem to request for things to make sense, the more people will take their common sense, throw it out the window, and still insist that all that they keep doing in order to shun and hurt people is in Jesus' will somehow. Even though he's not the kind of person who would do that. Personally, I think it is a spirit of religion that is largely behind the shunning. Why? Because the religious leaders of Jesus' day were the ones who would shun the sinners, would shun other people, who would do all of that. And I can honestly say, the leaders of this community behave as Pharisees. And should be criticized for it. I will see everybody next time. Thank you for watching.